Hey everyone, my name is Aiden, and in today's video, I'm going to be going ahead and show you guys my system for how to generate quality B2B leads for a cold email outreach campaign, right? So, lead generation, obviously, it's an essential part of B2B sales. So, if you're running a B2B business, you're obviously gonna have to generate really quality leads if you want to do a successful outreach campaign, as it involves identifying and building relationships with customers in order to grow your business, right? So, in order to really build relationships with these customers, you have to, really be matched kind of like what they're looking for. So that's kind of what you're able to accomplish by generating quality leads. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys my full process for doing so. So the first process, obviously, for generating quality B2B leads is actually going ahead and scraping for these leads, right? So scraping for leads that are B2B involves gathering contact information and other data from various sources such as websites, social media platforms, and business directories. Here are a couple options you guys can use. So there's LinkedIn Sales Navigator, right? This is probably the most popular one. A lot of business professionals, business owners, CEOs, owners, founders of companies, they're all on LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn is it's a platform of 600 million something people who all use it, and they're all professionals in some sort of business niche, right? So you go ahead and use LinkedIn Sales Navigator to pull data about people from there. Another way you can do this is by using websites, right? So go ahead and go on Google or just find a bunch of company websites, right? So if you see ads for a company or something like that, you could go to their website and you could go ahead and pull company data from there, right? And you could use different tools like snob.io, Hunter, Apollo, Lead Genius, AeroLeads, Voila, Nobear, right? And you could use these tools and you could scrape the website and pull a bunch of contact data from the website, right? So Snob, for example, it's a Chrome extension that you could use. Same thing with Apollo and Hunter. And yeah, you could just pretty much scrape leads using this, right? And another thing you can do is you could just use different tools. For example, like Clay. Clay has an function where you could go ahead and scrape leads using Google search, using Twitter followers, LinkedIn profiles, their extension, right? So you can scrape data from any website. So there's just a whole host of tools that you can scrape leads with, right? So, and then the final option is obviously a business directory. So examples of this would be Dun and Bradstreet, right? Dun and Bradstreet, if you don't know what that is, it's pretty much it's like every business has to register with them in the United States. So it has a list of all the businesses, and every time a new business registers, it will go ahead and show up on the Dun & Bradstreet kind of like database. And then there's also the Better Business Bureau. That's also just kind of like another business database. These two are both in the United States. So in other countries, you guys will probably have similar kind of databases that you guys can use. Like in England, they have a database. I know every country should have some sort of database where you have a list of companies to reach out to. But if you don't have a business database in your country, then go ahead and just use platforms like LinkedIn, use platforms like Clay, or just kind of like look for companies that you kind of run into and see if you can market to them, right? So that's step one, is scraping leads. Step two is generating leads, or another way you could do it is by generating leads through research, right? So obviously you could use LinkedIn to find companies and individuals within your target market. So you could use LinkedIn search, right? So like, let me go ahead and show you guys. LinkedIn.com, right? You go ahead and use LinkedIn search, and let's say I wanted to work with, let's say pediatricians. Yeah, pediatrician, right? So you could go ahead and search on LinkedIn, and you could go ahead and find pediatricians, people. And yeah, you can see a bunch of results for pediatricians, right? And then you could go ahead and search by location, search for connections, and have a whole bunch of filters you could go ahead and use, right? So that's one way you could use LinkedIn to research leads. You could also use Google, right? So you could go ahead and search your niche keywords. So you could look up law practices and whatever, or you could look up software companies that serve the healthcare niche, or you could look up whatever company that you want to look up, right? You could also use Google Maps. Google Maps is another just like directory, pretty much. It works for pretty much every country, to my knowledge, that pretty much has a database or has people that register their business to Google Maps. So you could look on Google Maps, search by location and by business type or whatever, and yeah, you could go ahead and go on Google Maps and scrape leads from there, right? So another way is to go through industry associations and events, right? So you could go through like good example of this would be let's say that people are going to a software conference, right? So a startup software conference, you could go ahead and look for attendees of that software conference. And those people are obviously people already spending money to invest in themselves and learning how to grow their company. So that would be a great example of an industry association or event. Another example would be, let's say you're trying to market to tradesmen, right? Like, let's say you're trying to market to construction workers and people who have some sort of blue collar trade business, right? So you could go ahead and go to some sort of construction worker conference or some sort of speaker conference and go ahead and pull a list of all the attendees, right? And that's a hot list of leads of people who are willing to invest in learning how to build their business, right? So that's another way is industry events and associations. And kind of following along that line is using social media. So using social media, like platforms like LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Reddit, Quora, Facebook groups, YouTube, any of those, people are using social media to try to find solutions to their problems, right? So if you are trying to find you're trying to find customers who are a marketing agency, right? You're working with marketing agencies, or let's say you're working with a software company, right? Then you could go on social media and then look for groups that people who are owners of social software companies would engage in, right? So for example, let's go on Facebook, let's go on Facebook. And say, for example, I wanted to go ahead and find owners of software companies, right? So scaling your SaaS, right? So I would go ahead and find it. Whoops, spelled that wrong. But you would go ahead and find a Facebook group that is about scaling SaaS founders, right? So now you have a whole list of 6,000 SaaS founders probably, right, who all want to go ahead and scale their group. So you can go ahead and reach out to these people. So this is how you leverage this is probably like some it's an influencer, Dan Martell, right? So you're leveraging groups and communities that are already built up in your niche. Great ways you could look for these are influencers. Go ahead and go on YouTube and search for them. You could go on Spotify and search for podcasts, or you could just go on blogs and websites and find communities that way, right? So that's how you generate leads through research. Another useful thing you can do is enrich your data using sales intelligence software, right? So once you actually have a list of leads that you've gathered, you can use sales intelligence software to enrich the data by collecting additional information about your leads, right? So if you have a first name, last name, and company name in a LinkedIn profile, right, you can go ahead and pull more data about them. So like industry size, how much money they're making, any recent purchases that they may have made, any recent changes that they've made to their management structure or their employment structure. You could do things like find out what tech stack they're using, right? You could find out a whole bunch more information about a company, so you could better target your message and better target your outreach to them, right? So some popular tools include Lucia, Seamless, ZoomInfo, Clearbit. As you can see here, here's just a little table comparing the pricing and the feature set of all of these, right? So Lucia, Seamless AI, ZoomInfo, Clearbit, Lead Genius, Bombora, those are all great examples of tools you can go ahead and use and enrich your data, right? And like I said, Clay.run, it's a new one. Clay.run, it pulls data from a whole bunch of different sources, and they're constantly adding new data sources to pull from. So take advantage of it while you can. You can get in now and get a free trial of 700 roles, right? Go ahead and get in now. So finally, you could also buy leads from freelancers. This is probably the quickest, easiest, probably not the cheapest way in the long term, but yeah, what you're doing is you're going to go ahead and go on a marketplace like Fiverr, Upwork, Freelancer, Guru, whatever the hell you want to go on, and you're just going to buy a list of leads from someone who's going to go ahead and scrape out the leads for you. And typically these people are from outsourced overseas countries, right? And they're going to do it pretty cheaply for you. But I'll go into the cons about it in a bit, but that's one way you could do is buy leads from a freelancer who's going to scrape them for you, or just give you a lead list. Could be a hit or miss. And then the other way is by doing lead generation companies. Again, it could be a hit or miss, but lead generation companies are going to cost you a lot more. So if they do a good job and they cost a lot of money, then great, they're worth it. But it's kind of hard to tell with a lead generation company because you're relying on their system to do it for you, right? So these companies, they're not building the system for you, they're just handing lists of leads off to you. So here are the pros and cons obviously of doing it. The pro is it could save you a lot of money if you just outsource it, because these people, they have a set price, so like $40 for 100 scrape leads. It could be cheaper than what you're doing it for if you have to actually buy your own tools and do it yourself. So if it could save you some money if you just want it done quick and easy. And obviously it's very easy because you just have to pay someone, tell them what you want, and they'll give you relatively targeted list of leads depending on who you're buying from, right? But that's the hard part. Obviously, it's the quality of leads, right? You don't know, depending on a freelancer, depending on the lead generation company, what kind of quality of leads you're going to get from them, right? So you may end up with a bunch of invalid leads or a bunch of leads that just don't even fit your target persona and your niche market. So that could be a problem. And obviously the lack of control when you buy leads from freelancers or lead lists or lead generation company, right? Then all you're doing is you're just putting your trust in them, right? So why would you want to generate your own leads versus buying them? Well, it may save you money in the short term to actually like buy leads from freelancers, but you're actually buying leads for a lot more expensive now because depending on the freelancer, if you're buying shitty leads, right, or just leads that are not high quality, you're gonna end up spending a lot more money to actually get high quality leads, right? Like if 20% of your list leads are invalid, then you're only getting 80% of the leads you actually paid for, right? Or if only 50% of them are actually qualified leads in your target niche market, right? Then you're only getting 50% of the leads you pay for. So if you paid $40 for 100 leads, now suddenly it becomes $95 for 100 leads, and it became a lot more expensive, right? So you could save a lot more time to by hiring a freelancer, but like I said, cleaning through the data and actually looking through to make sure that they're qualified can actually make you spend even more time than actually if you were to generate or set up your own in-house system to generate your own leads, right? And then finally, obviously, is the quality. If you generate your own leads and you know exactly the quality of leads because you know exactly what data points you're actually going ahead and scraping and getting, and you know what data points you're actually gonna be able to target these people with. So ultimately, the decision of whether or not you generate your own leads or buy them from freelancers, it's gonna rest upon you, right? I honestly believe that generating your own leads or finding someone to implement a system for you to generate your leads is probably the best way to go, because that way you're gonna have a system for you, and you have more control over what the leads that you're getting and the outreach that you're conducting, right? So obviously as much as generating leads is a great big part of a successful outbound system, it's only one piece of the puzzle, right? Aside from generating leads, right, and scraping for them, you're gonna have to craft your outreach message. You're gonna have to obviously, like I said, personalize your outreach message, and then finally you're gonna have to actually have a system for warming up your prospects and then booking them onto your calendar, right? So that's actually what we do here. If you're curious, my name is Aiden. I'm the founder of Expansively, and what we do is we guarantee 100 book calls onto sales calendars of B2B agency owners, consultancies, and coaches in the next 60 days, right? And we do this without the need for paid ads, for you to do manual outreach, or for you to have to go around and chase referrals, right? So we'll go ahead and set up a system for you to scrape leads, reach out to prospects, and warm these prospects up, and then book them onto your calendar, right? And we'll use a whole plethora of different tools and get you set up on that. So if you're interested, go ahead and book a call. We'll give you it's not going to be anything like pushy. We're just going to give you a free walkthrough of the system and see how we could potentially implement it for you, and just figure out what problems you're running into with outreach and generating clients for your business, and see how we could potentially solve them. So that's what we're going to do. If you're interested, like I said, go ahead and book a call. And yeah, that's it for this video. If you guys found value in what I had to bring today, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe. Go ahead and follow my Facebook group and join it if you want more value, because I'll be dropping a lot more gems down there. And yeah, make sure you guys follow my socials as well. And until next time, thank you guys for watching.